What are the plans from those dark families for this year? Okay, so this is an interesting question. So, the dark families that Jester is referring to are the elite families that are part of something that's called the permanent government. And I would really recommend everybody to, especially for 2021, to start getting to know what the permanent government is and the elite families that have formed organizations, NGOs, just different organizations that actually inform the governments of the world. So, over the last 100 years or so, through various different crises or various different events, there has been families that are intergenerationally wealthy, which means they've accumulated a lot of wealth and power, that have formed organizations that basically became so powerful privately that they began to pay off and control politics throughout the world. And it took about a good 60 years, especially since Kennedy's death. But these families have been able to, and these groups have been able to basically consolidate huge amounts of power in a very small place. And what we're seeing in the world has everything to do with this obviously illegal and corrupt and just plain inhuman consolidation of power that's going on. I mean, people walk around right now like the government is genuinely in the best interest of the people. This is inaccurate. The governments are controlled by these private organizations that many call the permanent government, or that control elites. If you were to understand one thing, it would be to understand that that's what modern politics, modern business is about. And we're at a gridlock right now because all the power and wealth is so consolidated at this point that there is no social mobility. And a lot of people believe that we need to collapse ourselves into communism or a more socialist society because there is no social mobility. But what that does is it collapses us right into the laps of these people. You cannot have a socialist society when the leadership is basically a couple small families. That is not socialism. That is not communism. That is basically, you have a king, you have a royal family again, which is regressive. What we need is to reform. We need to get things back to how they're supposed to be. We need a merit-based system again, rather than who you know, right? So this is who the elites that Jester is talking about. This is the families. You can look them up. It is not a secret. We have the receipts. We can track the stories, and actually the stories have been told. The research has been done 50 million times over. It's very frustrating actually to have this go on and have the information sitting there, but people have so much cognitive dissonance that they don't care to learn it. So what are the plans from the dark families this year? Well, we have had 2020, which was a very chaotic year. And the year 2020 was really about shaking a lot of people awake, but we can see two prominent cults forming on both sides. The left has a cult and the right has a cult. And these cults on the political right and the political left are really still polarizing America and other countries. And so what we're going to see in 2021 is that these polarizations are going to get less and less and less. Okay, so in 2020, we were totally polarized, and it's very uncomfortable because it's like we're being stretched, right? It's very uncomfortable actually for a civilization to not be in some level of agreement. It's very hard to have a civilization or a society that doesn't have some level of agreement, some kind of level of things that they agree on. We've not had that. We've had the exact opposite, to the point that there's even large portions of the population that want to dissolve America or dissolve certain countries and turn it into something completely different, right? So we've had an extremely polarizing year. In 2021, we are going to see that polarization begin to burn off. They cannot keep burning that brightly. The cults can't keep burning that brightly, although they will try, because cognitive dissonance is very motivating for a lot of different people. We're going to start seeing a lot more people realize that the political system as we know it is corrupt, and it is not going to be healed by the means that are traditional. It ain't. And I think more and more people are going to begin to see that. And what that means is that more and more people are going to start to realize that America and the world is not going to change through politicians as we know it, or the political system as we know it. It is going to come from the people. We are going to see a third party begin to form in 2021. Around midway through is going to be gaining a lot of traction. And this will be a necessary process that we have to go through. But the elite families that you're talking about, Jester, are still going to be involved in this system. We have to understand that the permanent government that is installed now, that is behind the governments of the world, that has basically bought them out, they're not just going to collapse in a few difficult years. They're not just going to disappear into the night. This is literally hundreds of years of precise wealth consolidation and planning. It's not going to go away in one presidential term or in 4 years. We have to ride this out, and we have to have endurance, and we have to have clarity, and we have to know that it's going to come from us, and we're going to go through a barrage of various political leaders that will say that they'll give us more power, but they will actually come up short. And so what we will learn, especially beginning in 2021, is that it's going to come from us. And what I mean when I say it's going to come from us is that we have to begin separating ourselves psychologically from the system that exists. We cannot treat it the way that our parents have treated it. We cannot treat it how we have treated it as a child, or we cannot treat it as though it is a working, fair system. It is corrupt with a capital C. And the only thing that is going to change that system is beginning to pull our energy from it, to become more independent, to move towards smaller communities, to move towards gathering together in person more, and to have extremely high standards for leadership, and to remove the addiction to personality cults that we have and always giving our power away to leaders. This is a blind spot for humanity. We have a savior complex. We got to let that go. We are our saviors, and that is what this whole crisis is going to teach us until we can let go and stop giving our power, even through drama, to these forces. These forces need to be starved of energy. Why? Because they're parasitic. We need to understand the foundation, the fundamentals of what this is. The elite, as we know them, are parasitic. That means they eat your life force energy, and it means they will always create systems, however they have to, for their own survival, to feed on humanity. What does the government do right now? The government takes a whole lot of tax dollars, and we see nothing of it. The school systems are in shambles. Nature is not being tended to. The amount of money that the government gets could create a much better society. But the problem is it's going into people's pockets. It's going overseas. It's crazy. So what do? We need to begin to separate ourselves from it and become more independent. Moving into smaller communities. There will be a push to move into large cities. into smaller and smaller houses that are even more and more surveilled than we could ever imagine. No, now is not the time to do that. Move yourself and your families into smaller areas that are more rural. Make it so that you're less and less dependent on this corrupt system, because it has to fall, and it is not going to fall gracefully. Would you, if you were the permanent government and you had accumulated all of this wealth and you were a parasitic person, parasitic group that was basically possessed, would you just quietly go into the night? Or would you make it seem as though all of these saviors were coming and then have them disappoint you every single time so that you could get as much energy as possible? When we understand the spiritual, energetic dynamics of a group like these elite, we can begin very, very, very accurately to predict what they will do. And when we combine that intuition and understanding of energy with the in plain sight esoteric beliefs that they have, which is they have to reveal what they're doing beforehand. Hey, we've got this in the bag, guys. We do. But our problem is that we have this savior mentality where we always think that there's going to be this leader that leads us out. And our lesson is, our initiation here is to say, oh, I get it. What can I do today to be more independent from the system? What can I do today to be more independent? And if this is a thing that is completely unknown to you, if you don't know anything about gardening, if you don't know anything about homesteading or anything about living more independently, hey, I'm in that boat too. What you do is you start to learn. You start to watch as many videos as you can on topics that you're interested in, on just living more self-sustaining. Read books, and just start engrossing yourself with information on how to live more independently, how to get off of this dependence on the government, dependent on the system, dependent on the power grid, dependent on the, on this system that's basically consolidated into a manipulative few. Just start reading, just start. And what will happen is you'll find that you'll start to learn a new language and that your higher self will begin to speak to you in that language. It'll start to, once you start engrossing yourself in various different streams of information that are maybe different than anything that you've read before, it's really surprising how quickly you'll begin to pick it up and think in that way and build an interest, okay? The problem is that we have atrophied. It's a problem for human beings that a lot of people don't even like going in nature. They don't even know anything about the first thing about how to be in nature at all. This is the problem with a lot of what's going on. We don't have to be Paul Bunyan living in the woods. You don't have to be that. But we should be informed on our food, and we should be perhaps relying on smaller farms, smaller communities, supporting smaller artists. Make it smaller, make it more community oriented. Because what's going to happen with these dark families this year and the years to come is that if they can't have it, no one can. This is not a good attitude, okay? A lot of people think that the COVID stuff is just going to disappear and that we're not going to be on the same trajectory and it's just going to go back to normal. I really don't see that. I see something set in motion that is a huge initiation for humanity. It's our gift. It's actually a great gift because we actually get to move into more of a natural way of life. And again, I don't mean like living in the woods. I mean even just moving into a smaller community, supporting smaller farms, supporting just smaller, more sustainable things rather than huge factory farms, or big corporations. It's really getting into that community-oriented place. Put your money in a credit union rather than a huge bank. It's bringing the power back to the people, whatever way that you can. Okay, this is really what it is, and it doesn't have to mean an extremely off the grid way of living, but bringing it back into the community, into actual people, and moving away from huge corporations like Amazon, huge banks, and starting to put our power elsewhere. Because I'll tell you what, we're never going to get over this if we keep funding the system that is oppressing us. All that's happening is pieces are being moved around and we're given these false experience of justice. We're just getting one conspiracy theory thrown at us over, like, again and again and again, never focusing on solving anything. So we need to focus. And the biggest point of focus, the biggest power that we have is, where are we putting our money? Where are we living? Where is our energy going? So let's put our energy into love, loving ourselves, and into peace, and into building up that beautiful, warm Kundalini energy that is everything we've been talking about today. Let's build up our spirit. Let's build up our heart. And we will change the collective consciousness, every single person, through that work. Do not underestimate the building of the heart, okay? Move your money out of big banks and into small credit unions. Starve the system, starve the beast. The beast is parasitic by nature. You're not. Most people aren't actually parasitic. They don't need to suck off of people to live, but that is the elite's greatest weakness, is they need you. They need you. Not only do they need you, they need us worn down, exhausted, and constantly thinking there's going to be a disaster, constantly thinking there's going to be a food shortage, constantly thinking the lights are going to go out, constantly thinking that there's going to be a riot outside of our house. They need us to be on the edge of fear all the time, because fear is the energy that they eat as a parasitic entity. Know the mechanics. If you can understand the esoteric mechanics, you can do good predictive work. It's not in big shocking events. It is in the wearing down of human beings over the next 5 to 10 years. Wearing people down until they just say, fine, I'm so exhausted. I have no hope. I'm so tired. Put me in one of your shoe boxes. Surveil me. Put me full of nanites. Vaccinate me. I don't care. Just stop. That is what the plans are. So, don't participate. Stop. You are a divine being on this earth, so connect with this earth and begin to live closer and closer and closer to it, and find a community to serve. Find a community to be part of, smaller things, okay? This is how we get through, because the plans for the dark families are to consolidate energy. And they will do so by wearing us down, by making us lose hope in leaders, by giving us small flickers of joy and then taking it away with drama, by keeping us afraid, but still going.